Chapter 1. Death Row, Rune Master. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Simple MTL Editor. Simple MTL. Luff woke up from his coma. He was in a dark prison, wearing a tattered prison uniform. What is this place? Luff stood in stunned silence until he remembered that he had got wasted in a bar the previous night, which had ended in a one-night stand with a hot woman. He remembered venting his anger 7 times before finally falling into a deep sleep as exhaustion took over him. This kind of thing often happened as long as he had money to spend. But this time was different. Instead of waking up in a big hotel bed, Luff found himself in prison. Memories, both familiar and unfamiliar, flashed through Luff's mind. The surge was too much to bear. He fell to the ground, his head buried in his hands. Simon Empire, Runes, Prince Berg. Did I actually transmigrate? Does this mean I'll be hanged tomorrow? Luff stayed glued to the spot even as the memories gradually started to make sense to him. Did he transmigrate just because he had slept with a woman? Would such a worthless act lead to his hanging? The thought puzzled him. Luff sifted through the memories in his mind. He understood that this was a runic world where people could possibly control magical runes with their minds and thus possess extraordinary abilities. Each and every rune was shrouded in mystery. Some runes allowed people to control the waves of the sea. Some runes allowed plants to grow unhampered. Some runes allowed people to possess powerful combat abilities. Some runes allowed people to summon lightning. Those who could manipulate runes with their minds became Rune Masters. In this world, Rune Masters had incomparably noble statuses, possessing endless wealth, land, servants, and more. Even the king of the Simon Empire had to kneel and bow down to these masters. Not only did the Rune Masters possess an extremely high social status, they also possessed magical abilities. They even lived longer than ordinary civilians. Everyone in this world wanted to become a Rune Master, including Luff. However, becoming one was extremely difficult. Controlling runes required deep meditation, which meant perfecting the pronunciation and mastering the meaning of the holy runes. Just the pronunciation of runes was enough to give most people a headache. Runes came from a long time ago. The language system of that time was completely different from the language system of today. Thousands of years had passed since the last rune masters had existed. Over thousands of years, the prophets had come up with 1,000,000 types of rune pronunciations. However, it was extremely difficult and time-consuming to find the correct pronunciation from the countless possibilities. Some people spent their whole lives trying to find the corresponding pronunciation, only to fail miserably. Therefore, people could only rely on instinct if they wanted to master runes. This so-called instinct, to put it bluntly, relied on blind guesses. With the blessing of the goddess of luck, a person could become a respected holy prose master by guessing the pronunciation of runes. The odds of becoming a Rune Master were extremely rare. For thousands of years, study after study was made, which led to the discovery of a method far more reliable than making guesses. Yin Xian. According to the Yin Xian phenomenon, runes could assume 7 different colors. Red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple, just like a rainbow. The different colors represented the accuracy of the pronunciation. Red was the least accurate, and purple was the most. A purple rune meant that it had been pronounced the way it was meant to be pronounced, just like in ancient times. The Yin Xian method established that runes turned into other colors if the pronunciation was not very accurate. Purple runes were extremely rare and precious. For thousands of years, tens of billions of humans had walked the earth, but there were only a little more than 100 purple runes. But more difficult than coming up with the correct pronunciation was knowing the profound meaning of runes. This could not be taught systematically like knowledge. One could only rely on personal comprehension to fathom what the runes really meant. Some people would spend a lifetime racking their brains, only to perish without understanding the profound meaning of runes. Therefore, becoming a rune master was nearly impossible. Although Luff was occupying the body of a commoner, he had a rune in his brain. This rune came from Luff's family. The family was once very glorious and great. The precious purple rune had been passed down for generations. The family had since fallen, but they had been very careful to protect the rune. They were afraid that it would fall into other hands. However, an elder in the family had accidentally leaked this information when he was drunk. Prince Berg of the Simon Empire had found out about the rune and vowed to claim it for himself. Prince Berg's methods were very cruel. He would not stop until he could get his hands on whatever he wanted. Whoever dared go against his will was brutally killed. Luff's family possessed the most precious purple runes in the world. Everyone in the family had been killed, succumbing to Prince Berg's cruelty. Everything was now down to Luff, the sole survivor and the only person who knew the whereabouts of the purple runes. Luff was brutally tortured and forced to give up the runes. But Luff's willpower was unyielding. Even though he was being cruelly tortured, he didn't say a word. Prince Berg lost his patience and threatened to hang Luff if the latter didn't hand over the rune the next day. "Damn you, Berg!" Luff was furious. He thought about how he had been living a blissful life in the developed modern city and how he had suddenly become a prisoner. Moreover, he would be hanged by Berg. How could Luff, who had the soul of a modern man, accept the current situation? He wanted nothing more than to rush out and kill Berg. Arg! Luff huffed. He was in an enclosure with solid rock walls on all three sides. There wasn't even a window. How could he escape? At that moment, a notification that sounded like one from a game suddenly rang in Luff's mind. The super search system is starting. Chapter 2. Turning English into Runes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Simple MTL Editor. Simple MTL. Luff was stunned. What was that? Soon, a semi-transparent information panel appeared in front of him. Luff was bewildered. It was as if he had entered a game world as an NPC, a non-player character. Name. Luff. Age. 17 level. 0 health. Beginner. Luff guessed that this super retrieval system must be similar to a gameplug.in. But what exactly was this system? Could it be used to search for information? Luff dismissed this question. He was going to be hanged tomorrow. What was the use of searching for information? The only thing he needed to do right now was figure out how to escape this prison. How would he get out? The super search system can find the notes of all the words in the world, including pronunciation and meaning. At the same time, the runes you have can be automatically converted into your mother tongue. The words in your mind can also be converted into runes. The voice sounded in Luff's mind as if in response to his question. All the words, including the runes. Of course. Luff was shocked. This cheat could actually find the meanings of runes. And didn't the voice say he could also transform the words in his mind into runes? If he could convert English into runes, wouldn't it be very easy for him to become a rune master? As a rune master, he would have magical abilities. He would not just escape from prison, he could even rush into the castle and kill Berg. Luff was thrilled. At the same time, he thought of the runes in his mind. This purple rune had a long history. It had given Luff's family incomparable nobility and power. Unfortunately, as time passed, the family's descendants had failed to comprehend this purple rune, leading to the family's gradual decline. This purple rune was made up of words that looked like little tadpoles. Luff didn't understand what it meant at all. However, he had a super search system. With the help of the system, not only would Luff understand the meaning of this rune, but he could also automatically turn it into English. Strong body, Luff said out loud, surprising himself. A huge purple rune magically appeared in the air. The characters Luff had thought were tadpoles rearranged themselves to form the English words, strong body. The purple rune emitted an intense blinding light that enveloped Luff. He felt his body undergoing a huge change. The torture wounds and bruises on his body healed instantly, gone without a trace. Luff rubbed his eyes, amazed to see and feel as if he had never been injured. To add to his astonishment, Luff was transformed from a lanky youth into a tall and sturdy man. His thick muscles far surpassed those of the world bodybuilding champions. Luff felt a surge through his body and he instinctively knew that he now had boundless strength. To test this, Luff stretched out his hand and gently bent the iron bar in front of him. The bar yielded without restraint, forming a hole large enough for Luff to go through. Luff looked at his hands in disbelief, his heart pounding in astonishment. A few seconds ago, he had been a thin prisoner. In the blink of an eye, he had become an extremely strong man. However, Luff knew that he had no time to waste. He had to escape this prison as soon as possible. He walked through the hole he had just created but hesitated when he suddenly thought of the soldiers that were surely stationed outside. Although he had unlimited power, Luff was not sure his body could withstand the damage their weapons could cause. Moreover, there were a lot of soldiers. He was strong, but he was wise enough to know that he must not be discovered and eventually outnumbered. Luff searched his mind for a safer method to escape. Got it. Luff snapped his fingers and an idea appeared in his mind. I can turn invisible. Luff recalled a sci-fi movie he had previously watched where an astronaut had developed the ability to turn invisible after being attacked by a solar storm. Of course, he did not need to be attacked by a solar storm. He only needed to use the power of the runes. The English word, invisible, suddenly appeared in Luff's mind. The system automatically transformed it into a rune. Invisibility. Luff chanted the rune pronunciation of invisibility in English. In the next second, a huge rune phantom appeared in the air and enveloped Luff with light. Luff's body gradually became transparent and finally disappeared. Before he left, Luff restored the bent iron railing to its original state. He fought the urge to laugh when he thought of the shocked expression that would appear on Berg's face when the tyrant found out that Luff was no longer in prison. Outside the door, 2 soldiers were guarding both sides of the prison entrance with weapons in their hands. Luff walked toward the 2 soldiers and deliberately danced around them. He wanted to know if he really had become invisible. The 2 soldiers stood their watch, unaware that their prisoner was prancing around them. Learning that the soldiers really could not see him, Luff felt bold and slapped one of the soldiers in the face. Of course, Luff had only to tap the soldier's cheek lightly. Otherwise, the slap would have been enough to smash the soldier's head. Roger, I hate your jokes, roared the soldier whose face had been slapped. Why did you hit me? When did I hit you? You must have seen a ghost. As the 2 soldiers started arguing, Luff left the prison, covering his mouth to hold back his laughter. L.C. Chapter 3. Body. Carrying carriage. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Simple MTL editor. Simple MTL name. Luff age. 17 level. 1. Star rune master, proficiency. 1%. Life. Beginner. Just as Luff walked out of the prison, his information panel changed. With a strong body rune and an invisibility rune, he had become a 1. Star rune. Master. This surprised Luff. Progressing to become a rune. Master in this world was usually a long process. Anyone who meditated on runes would first become a 1. Star rune apprentice. Even before they could have a chance of being a 1. Star rune. Master, they needed to master many runes through continuous meditation. But Luff had been a 1. Star rune. Master from the very beginning, surpassing many people. In the Simon Empire, even 1. Star rune. Masters held a very high social status and were respected by commoners. Right. What does proficiency mean? Luff asked the system, curious about the 1% proficiency indicated in his level. Proficiency refers to the skill and experience you have in using runes. As long as you keep using runes, you will be able to increase your proficiency. When your proficiency reaches 100%, you will be able to increase your level and become a stronger rune.master. Luff understood. The system had explained it very clearly. He was different from the others. He did not need to train hard in meditation. He only needed to keep using runes to become a more powerful rune.master. Luff clenched his fists in excitement, seeing how he could use this for vengeance. Just you wait, Berg. I'll kill you sooner or later. Simon Empire was similar to the European Empire in the Middle Ages. The architectural style was similar too. Pedestrians came and went. From time to time, a few carriages would pass through the streets. In the carriages sat nobles dressed in fabulous clothes. Seeing these galloping carriages, civilians dressed in ragged clothes would move aside, with nothing to do but look at these nobles with envy. F***ck. Damn it. The coachman driving one of these carriages suddenly saw a burly man jump out onto the middle of the road. However, instead of slowing down, the coachman planned to speed up and rush towards this man. The speeding carriage would definitely smash this man into a pile of meat. Lowly commoner, how dare you block a noble's carriage, the coachman said as his eyes flickered with contempt. He waved the horsewhip in his hand, as if crazed. The commoner nearest to the man crouched down on the ground, not daring to remind the man to move away from the path of the carriage. He did not want to be in trouble with the nobles. Some of the passers-by even covered their eyes. They could not bear to see this man being smashed by the carriage. Unknown to anyone, this man was really Luff, who had just escaped from prison. He had deactivated his invisibility and had returned to his original state. Luff felt that he was walking in medieval Europe. He looked at the structures and the crowd around him with interest. For a moment, he actually did not notice the carriage that was speeding towards him. Suddenly, Luff sensed something and turned around abruptly. A carriage was speeding towards him, he was directly in its path. Luff's heart jumped, but in the next second, he immediately regained his calm. Not only did Luff gain bodily strength, but his mind's ability to react was also greatly enhanced. Just by looking at the approaching carriage, Luff knew that his strength was not enough. He could only rely on the power of the runes. What could withstand the impact of the carriage? Rocks. City walls. Steel. Only certain runes would work in a situation such as this. Visualizing the wrong thing could lead to nothing. What are you visualizing? Luff thought to himself. It was a critical moment, but he did not panic. Instead, he quickly thought of a way to deal with the matter. To the bystanders, Luff was just waiting for his tragic end. Could he have been scared witless? Ah, poor young man. It's rare to see such a tall and handsome young man. What a pity. When the civilians saw Luff's blank face, they thought that he had been scared witless by the speeding carriage. Got it. Luff snapped his fingers and shouted, metallization. A rune appeared in the depths of his mind. At the same time, a rune phantom hovered above Luff, emitting a holy light and enveloping him. In an instant, Luff's entire body was covered in a metallic luster. His body was transforming from the inside into metal and the hardness of his body was increasing by the second. The sound of collision rang out in the street. Suddenly frightened, the horse drawing the carriage raised its hooves in mid-air, about to trample Luff to mush. Luff stretched out his arms and grabbed onto the horse's hooves. With a forceful push, he held back the horse and the carriage. The carriage shook and the coachman fell to the ground. Lo, from within the carriage, a delicate cry, like that of a sweet bird, rang out. Luff put down the horse's hooves. The frightened horse dared not move recklessly and quietened down. He's actually a rune.master. Such a young rune.master is truly inconceivable. If he wasn't a rune.master, he wouldn't have been able to block the carriage. The surrounding commoners were all shocked. They were surprised to see Luff using his body to block the carriage, while a rune phantom appeared in the sky. This man was unmistakably a rune master. What's going on? A woman wearing a long, exquisite dress angrily drew the curtain on the carriage. Her long hair dazzled like gold. She had snow-white skin that made her sapphire eyes even more strikingly beautiful. Even Luff, who had had deep interactions with many beautiful women, was moved. This woman had a charm that modern daughters did not have. She was a real noblewoman. Chapter 4. Rejecting the Princess's Invitation. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Translator. Simple MTL Editor. Simple MTL. Luff suddenly felt a burning sensation in his body. This primitive impulse took him by surprise. Your Highness Vivian, this damn commoner blocked the carriage. He should be sentenced to death. The coachman complained as he picked himself up from the ground. If it were not for this man, the coachman would not have made a fool of himself. He would not be on the receiving end of punishment from the princess. But his anger was replaced with bewilderment when he turned to look at the wretched commoner. The sky was still spiraling with runic shadows emitting a holy radiance. Luff looked shabby, but under the holy light of the runes, he appeared exceptionally sublime. His incomparably strong body and divinely handsome facial features seemed to have been personally carved by a god. The coachman's voice trembled. This lowly commoner was actually a rune master. He had actually desecrated a rune master just now. One had to know that the status of a rune master was noble. Even a 1-star rune master possessed an extremely high social status. In this world, there was an unwritten rule. A rune master had the right to personally execute whoever had offended him. The coachman trembled as his eyes filled with fear. But Luff did not even look at him. His eyes were like torches staring at the beautiful woman in the carriage. So you are a rune master. Vivian did not mind Luff's unbridled gaze. On the contrary, it made her sapphire eyes light up. Her lips, which Luff suddenly wanted to taste, opened slightly. Although the man in front of her was dressed in shabby clothes, he was tall, burly, and extremely handsome. Bathed in the light of runes, he seemed like a god who had descended to the human world. Not bad. Luff's body might have grown stronger since he had discovered the system, but it was still that of a young man. So when Vivian, Princess of the Empire, learned that this young man was a rune master, she could not help but feel surprised. Becoming a rune master required many years of hard meditation. Seeing a rune master as young as this man was incredible. Of course, Vivian had seen geniuses who became rune masters at a young age, but those geniuses were either born in noble families or underwent training from famous masters. This man in front of her appeared to be nothing more than a commoner. Vivian got out of the carriage, her thin waist accentuated by her hips. She walked like a willow branch swaying, her scent wafting in the air as she walked towards Luff. She extended her smooth and fair hand to Luff. He took it, smiled, and kissed the back of Vivian's hand as a medieval knight might. Would you be willing to come to the palace as my guest? Lo. Vivian immediately extended an olive branch to Luff, curious about what he would do with it. Vivian, Princess of the Simon Empire, was herself only a 7-star magic apprentice. Oh my god, the princess actually allowed him to kiss the back of her hand. She even invited him to the palace as a guest. Of course. He is a rune master and his status is honorable. It is true that rune masters are honorable, but only top-notch rune masters receive any kind of courtesy from the royal family. I really envy him. I can only dream of going to the royal palace. The civilians, surprised by the turn of events, discussed the matter among themselves. I'm sorry, I can't. Luff refused, going against everyone's expectations. What? Is he crazy? He actually dared to refuse the invitation of Her Highness, the princess. This is an opportunity that others could never even begin to dream of. How could he actually reject it? Vivian was confounded, there was a flash of dismay in her eyes. Had this man really rejected her invitation? Many noble sons would give the world for even the slightest chance of seeing her, but this man had rejected her. Vivian wondered if she had heard wrong. "Are you refusing?" "Yes," Love said as he met Vivian's gaze before looking down. Vivian was tall, but Love was at least a head taller than her. Looking down, Love caught sight of Vivian's snow-white chest. It was really dazzling, but he could only feast his eyes. Vivian was the princess of the Simon Empire, which made her Berg's sister. If he went to the palace with Vivian and bumped into Berg, he would probably lose his life. "Why?" Vivian asked, frowning. "Forgive me, Your Highness, but I have pressing matters to attend to," Love said, making up a reason to avoid the invitation. "But I'll visit you when I get the chance." Seeing the resolve in Love's eyes, Vivian thought better than making any more requests. "Here are some gifts. Take them," she said as she handed him a pouch filled with gold coins. "I'll wait for you to come." A Rune-master definitely did not deserve to live in bad conditions and dress in rags, so the princess gave Love her coins. "Thank you. I will definitely come for a visit." Love was momentarily astounded, but he chose not to stand on ceremony. He secretly weighed the sachet, noting that there were at least dozens of gold coins in it. How generous. This will help a lot. In this world, gold and silver coins were in circulation. A gold coin was equivalent to 100 silver coins, and a silver coin was the daily wage of a commoner. At first, Love was worried about money. He did not expect someone to just give it to him. With these gold coins, he did not have to worry about money in this world, at least while the gold coins lasted. After giving Love the pouch, Vivian got back into the carriage and ordered the coachman to drive away. Before the carriage started, Vivian looked back at Love. His strong body and handsome face had left a deep impression on her. Chapter 5. Robbing the Treasury. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Translator. Simple MTL Editor. Simple MTL. Along the way, Yarn saw many ragged and hungry civilians sitting on the roadside. Yarn felt a little surprised. This was the capital of the Simon Empire. He did not expect there to be so many poor civilians. Yarn's originally excited mood turned glum. Save! Save me! When he passed by a slum, Yarn heard a cry for help. A young man, who was dressed luxuriously but covered in blood, stumbled out. After a few steps, fell to the ground. The wounds on the man's body were so deep that his bones could be seen, and blood kept seeping out. Before he died, his hands were still struggling weakly. This scene gave the surrounding civilians a fright. They all gathered closer to the corpse of the luxuriously dressed man, but no one dared to go forward to take a look. If they were treated as murderers by the patrolling soldiers, they would be immediately arrested and sentenced to death. Yarn walked forward and took a look at the injuries on the man's body. The fatal injury was on his abdomen, which had been penetrated by a sharp weapon. Other than that, there was no other information. At this moment, the system's notification sound rang in Yarn's mind. Ding! Automatic retrieval of the memory information of the deceased. Yarn was stunned for a moment. He did not expect the system to be able to retrieve the memory of the deceased as well as the words. The information of the deceased has been retrieved. Do you wish to review? Review. Then, some scenes flashed in Yarn's mind like a movie. Charles, the 9th prince of the Shizhao Empire, is pursuing. A moment later, Yarn found out that the dead man was actually the 9th prince of the Shizhao Empire. After failing to compete with his brothers for the right to inherit the throne, he had been forced to flee to the Simon Empire. However, the other princes of the Shizhao Empire did not intend to let Charles go. Just a few hours ago, Charles had been hit by an assassin. Although he escaped under the cover of his trusted aides, he could not escape death because of his heavy injuries. What interested Yarn was the mansion where Charles lived in the Simon Empire. There was a small treasury. Inside it was all sorts of rare treasures and a large number of gold coins that Charles had brought from the Twilight Empire. No one would complain about having too much money, let alone Yarn, who was a modern man who pursued the quality of life. Although Vivian had given him quite a few gold coins, enough to cover the expenses of a civilian for more than a decade, it was far from enough to enjoy a high-quality life. So, Yarn decided to visit Charles's mansion. Charles's mansion was in the most prosperous area of Simon Empire's capital. There were a lot of nobles and wealthy merchants living there. The environment was elegant, and there were many houses. There was no garbage on the wide road, and the air was filled with the fragrance of flowers. According to Charles' memory, Yarn easily found his mansion. Before he went in, Yarn smelled a pungent smell of blood, which put him on high alert. After becoming a 1-star rune master, Yarn's soul perception was strengthened. In his perception, Charles' mansion was filled with dead bodies. The blood had stained the clean ground and had splashed on the snow-white walls, making one's heart tremble. There were no survivors in the mansion. Yarn heaved a sigh of relief and let down his guard. He quickly walked toward Charles's treasury. He easily opened the mechanism that Charles had set on the door of the small treasury, and excitedly opened the door. Seeing all kinds of dazzling treasures and gold coins inside, Yarn was stunned. Just the gold coins alone filled with several large boxes, emitting a dazzling light. There were hundreds of thousands of gold coins. In addition to gold coins, there were many different things in the treasury, such as precious medicinal herbs, shiny gems, and so on. There were also some things that Yarn did not recognize that could be stored in the treasury by Charles, who was a prince. They were definitely good things. Dnov Yarn swallowed his saliva and suppressed the ecstasy in his heart. He had to take all these things away, but he could not take much with only 2 hands. However, he could use the power of runes. If he could have a portable hidden space, he could take everything away. Yes, portable space. The English words immediately appeared in Yarn's mind. These English words were transformed into runes by the system. After thinking this, the same purple rune projection was projected in the air, sprinkling down holy light. A moment later, the purple rune shrank and entered Yarn's mind. This purple rune had an independent space, about 500 square meters. It was practically a warehouse. Yarn was overjoyed. He quickly stuffed everything in the treasury into the space. Although there were a lot of things in Charles's vault, they only took up a small area in the space. When he had finished, Yarn heard a series of footsteps coming from outside the mansion. They were neat and close like raindrops. He guessed that the Imperial Army had come. After all, so many people had died in Charles's mansion. It was difficult not to attract the attention of others. Dozens of soldiers were led into the mansion by an armed officer. You are in charge of checking for any survivors. Search every room. As these soldiers were searching the mansion, Yarn had already left the mansion with a full load of loot. With so many gold coins, even if Yarn squandered freely, it would take him more than 10 years to squander them all. My body is too dirty. I should take a good bath. The problem now was to find a hotel, take a good shower, sleep, and send his clothes for washing. They were smelly and dirty, which made Yarn very uncomfortable. Chapter 6 9. Rune Master. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Simple MTL Editor. Simple MTL Dawn Inn was the most famous inn in the wealthy district. Not only did it provide room and board, baths, a library, and a training room, but as long as one was willing to spend money, there were also beautiful women to wait on them. Those who could enter and leave this place were all high-class people with a lot of wealth. Dawn Inn's prices were extremely high. Just one night's expenditure was equivalent to 10 years' income for a commoner's family. However, Yarn did not lack the money right now. Outside Dawn Hotel, there was a beautiful, quiet garden. A cobblestone road went through the tender green grass to the hotel. A tall doorman in uniform stood outside the door. Suddenly, he saw a young man in shabby clothes. "Please stop." The doorman subconsciously tried to stop the young man, but he saw the young man throw a handful of gold coins. The gold coins glittered under the sun and instantly attracted the doorman's attention. Without even looking at the doorman, Yarn strode into Dawn Hotel. As soon as he walked into the hotel, he attracted a lot of attention. The first was from a girl with long flax-colored hair at the front desk. Yarn walked towards her and proudly slapped a handful of gold coins on the front desk. "I want a room." The girl saw the gold coins in front of her and Yarn's handsome appearance. She could not help but be stunned. She guessed that the man in front of her was not a down-and-out, but a noble. "Ah, okay." The girl handed Yarn a price list. The hotel rooms were divided into several levels. The highest level rooms cost 500 gold coins a night. Of course, Yarn chose the best room and paid 500 gold coins in one go. "Sir, this way please." A maid showed Yarn to his room. He walked into the room. The first thing he felt was that it was luxurious, and then it was spacious. The crystal chandelier reflected a gentle light, and the floor was covered with a soft carpet. On the table, there were fruits and food items that Yarn had never seen before, emitting an alluring fragrance. The most amazing thing for Yarn was that there was actually glass in this world. Right in front of him was a huge French window. Standing by the window, he could see the prosperous scenery of the rich area. After looking at everything in the room, Yarn was very satisfied. The bathtub in the bathroom was big enough to accommodate 4 or 5 people, enough to have an intense conversation. However, Yarn wasn't in the mood. Since he had escaped from prison, he had been in a tense state. He just wanted to take a bath and sleep. After taking a bath, Yarn felt refreshed. He stood in front of a full-body mirror and admired his appearance. Having been strengthened by runes, his body was as perfect as a statue. His streamlined muscles had surging strength. In the mirror, Yarn was young, handsome, tall, and extremely charming. After admiring himself for a while, he lay on the soft bed and fell into a deep sleep. When he woke up, he ate something and decided to head to the library to read and obtain some information. Although he had the help of the system and was able to convert English into runes, runes had already developed for thousands of years in this world. There was definitely something unique about it. In the use of runes, Yarn felt that he was still at a very basic level and needed to learn systematically. The library in Dawn Hotel was very large and was roughly divided into 2 areas. One was the bookshelf area where books were placed, and the other was the reading area. There weren't many forms of entertainment in this world, so a lot of people read as their hobby. Therefore, there were quite a few people in the library. They were dressed in gorgeous clothes and had noble statuses. They were quietly flipping through the books and occasionally conversing in soft voices. Yarn picked out a few books that introduced runes and this world. As soon as he sat down, a waitress served him a cup of tea. The aroma of the tea permeated the air. Yarn flipped through the books while drinking the tea. He was extremely satisfied. According to the records in these books, this world was called the Runic World. There had been gods in the Runic world before, but due to the passage of time, these gods had long since disappeared. After the gods had disappeared, many spatial cracks appeared in the Runic world. Foreign creatures from different dimensional worlds descended into the Runic world through the spatial cracks. These foreign creatures were incomparably powerful and possessed incredible abilities. They wantonly slaughtered and devoured the humans in the Runic world. It was only several thousand years ago that a dozen human wise men discovered the runic mysteries in the ruins left behind by the gods. From then on, they possessed formidable power. Under the leadership of these human wise men, the human civilization of the Runic world was born. They fought against alien lifeforms and established city-states. From then on, the human race prospered. At present, there were a total of 9 countries in the runic world. The Simon Empire and the Shizhou Empire were among them. The runic world was divided into 7 grades according to color: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. The grades ranged from low to high, representing the correct level of understanding and chanting of the runic master. Red runes were the lowest grade, and they were the weakest. Purple runes were the highest grade, and they were the strongest. On the other hand, rune masters were divided into 9 grades, ranging from 1 star to 9 stars. Rune masters represented the pinnacle of the runic world, and they were extremely rare. Out of the 9 nations of mankind, there were only 3 9-star rune masters. These 3 9-star rune masters were supreme, and they were incomparably noble. Before becoming a rune master, they were rune apprentices. They could grasp the pronunciation and meaning of some runes. Rune apprentices were also divided into 9 levels. Vivian was a 7-star rune apprentice. Chapter 7. Berg's Wedding. Tomorrow. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Simple MTL Editor. Simple MTL runes came from the remains of the gods. Although they couldn't be described or recorded, becoming a rune master required systematic learning in order to successfully meditate on runes in one's mind. The rune world had developed for thousands of years, and there was already a systematic rune learning system, which was the Rune Academy. Every empire had a Rune Academy, and every year, the empire would invest a large amount of money in the Rune Academy to nurture rune masters. This was because rune masters were the rulers of this world. Different rune masters had different abilities. Some had medical runes and possessed superb medical technology. Some had elemental runes, such as water element runes, which allowed them to control rivers, lakes, and seas, and some had enhanced runes. Their bodies were powerful, and their combat strength was astonishing. They could become outstanding warriors. Among them, rune masters in combat had the most outstanding and noble status in the rune world. This was because the foreign creatures from other dimensions had invaded the rune world. Ordinary humans were completely unable to stop these foreign creatures. Only rune masters were able to stop and kill them. In the past several thousand years, who knew how many wars had broken out between the foreign creatures and humans? Rune masters had suffered heavy casualties, but there was an endless stream of foreign creatures. Therefore, rune masters in combat were exceptionally rare. At present, it had been 50 years since the last great war between humans and mutated creatures. According to history, the next great war should not be far away. Every great war would break out in the same place, which was where the spatial cracks appeared. It was known as the heavenly battlefield. The battlefield of the heavens was filled with death threats, but there were also many opportunities. Races from different worlds would gather on the battlefield of the heavens and kill each other. The weak would be mercilessly killed. Only the strong could survive. From this, Yarn had a slight understanding of the history of this world. At the same time, he was also very curious as to why the gods of this world had suddenly disappeared thousands of years ago. Just as Yarn was flipping through the books, he heard a few young men not far away whispering to each other. Although their voices were controlled very quietly, as a 1-star rune master, Yarn's body had been strengthened and his hearing had greatly increased. Have you heard? Prince Charles of the Shizhou Empire had an accident and has mysteriously disappeared. All the guards in the mansion were killed and all the things in the vault were removed. His Highness the King has ordered people to investigate this matter thoroughly, but so far, no one has found Prince Charles's whereabouts. Tomorrow is Prince Berg's wedding, and His Majesty the King is in a bad mood because of this. This is not something we should worry about. By the way, have you prepared the gift for Prince Berg's wedding? We prepared it ages ago. Berg's wedding tomorrow. Hearing this news, Yarn frowned, as if a fire was burning in his heart. There would be nothing more satisfying than killing Berg on the occasion of his wedding. Just as he was thinking about how to achieve this goal, a man's voice came from behind him. There stood a young man dressed in luxurious clothes. One look and one could tell that he was a scion of a noble family. He was either rich or noble. The young man smiled. "Hello, my name is Celt. Looking at your attire, friend, you should be from the Illumination Empire, right?" Yarn was wearing Charles's custom-made clothes. They were very luxurious, and the materials used were exquisite. Moreover, they had the style of the Illumination Empire. Therefore, this young man mistakenly thought that Yarn was from the Illumination Empire. "Hello, Celt." Yarn remained expressionless and greeted him with a smile. However, a cold trace of disgust and killing intent flashed through the depths of his eyes. Yarn knew this young man. He was a friend of Berg and was also a noble of a prominent family. Other than Berg, this young man was the person Yarn wanted to kill the most. This was because Celt was the one who had killed Yarn's family. Yarn had been personally captured by him and imprisoned. He had even tortured him in an attempt to find out the whereabouts of the Purple Rune. In other words, Celt was Berg's lackey. Yarn still maintained a gentle smile on his face, but a deep cold killing intent surged in his heart. If it was not too obvious here, Yarn had no doubt that he would have killed Celt immediately. But, he could only endure it and wait for the right time. Celt was slightly stunned. At this moment, Yarn was tall and burly. He was handsome, and his every move was filled with charm. Celt could not help but have the thought of befriending Yarn. "Friend, how should I address you?" Celt revealed a smile that he thought was good, but in fact, it was so ugly that it made one nauseous. 15. Yarn casually said a name. 15. Celt's eyes suddenly widened, and there was a hint of shock in his eyes as he looked at Yarn. He thought that Prince Charles had claimed to be 9 in the Simon Empire because Charles was ranked 9th in the royal family of the Illumination Empire, and others called Charles the 9th Prince. The young man in front of him claimed to be 15, so it must not be his real name, but a code name. An ordinary person definitely did not need a code name. Moreover, judging from his temperament, words, and appearance, this young man was definitely not an ordinary person. He was also wearing the clothing of the Shizhou Empire. Could it be that he was the prince of the Shizhou Empire? At this moment, Celt was like a detective, thinking that he had already seen through the truth of the matter. However, he was very tactful and did not expose Yarn. Instead, he revealed an expression of understanding and said, "Hello, 15th young master. Are you also here for Prince Berg's wedding?" Chapter 8. Improving Combat Power. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Simple MTL Editor. Simple MTL. No. Yarn shook his head, but seeing the change in Celt's expression, he knew that he thought he was someone else. Putting the book back, Yarn said with a smile, "I'm here to deal with some family matters in the Simon Empire." "Why, are you interested, Celt?" "Ah." Hearing Yarn's words, Celt suddenly remembered that Prince Charles had mysteriously disappeared yesterday, and all the guards and servants in the mansion had been killed. Could this matter have something to do with the 15th prince? Celt immediately shook his head. This kind of matter was not something he could get involved in. Even if Charles's disappearance had something to do with the 15th prince, it did not matter to him. This was the matter for the royal family of the Illumination Empire. The Illumination Empire was the most powerful country among the 9 great empires. It was far more powerful than the Simon Empire. The 15th prince was not someone he could afford to offend. When he thought of this, cold sweat broke out on Celt's forehead. "No, no, no." Celt waved his hand. "Tomorrow is the wedding of Prince Berg and the #1 genius of the Simon Empire, Alice. Prince Berg has always been hospitable and likes to make friends. If the 15th prince is free tomorrow, he can come with me to attend Prince Berg's wedding." Yarn said, "I still have some things to do tomorrow. I'm not sure if I have time." Please forgive me. Of course, Yarn would not agree to Kelt. Even if he wanted to go to the palace to kill Berg, he would not go with Kelt. However, he could make use of him. Alright, then I won't disturb you while you are reading. Goodbye. Kelt felt a little regretful, but he couldn't say much. If he could introduce Yarn to Berg, his position in Berg's heart would definitely rise greatly. After all, Yarn was the 15th prince of the Illumination Empire. Humph. After Kelt left, Yarn's face was instantly covered with a layer of shadow. Tomorrow would be the time for him to kill Berg and Kelt, but he had to plan carefully before that. He was only a 1-star rune master now, and he didn't have many runes. There were 5-star rune masters in the palace, and their strength far surpassed his. Moreover, once he was exposed, with his current strength, he wouldn't be able to hold on for too long. An army would be able to end his life. At present, the only runes Yarn had were body strengthening, invisibility, and metallization. The rune effects of physical strength were eternal, but the effects of invisibility and metallization were temporary. They required physical strength and could only be maintained for a short period of time. Yarn returned to his room and paced back and forth, thinking about how to improve his combat strength. After his body had been strengthened by the runes, Yarn had not been worried about close combat, but he would try his best to avoid it because it was the most dangerous and also the most exhausting way of fighting. A person's strength was limited. Once his physical strength was exhausted, Yarn was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. His metallization allowed him to metallize everything he came into contact with. When he came into contact with his own body could be metallized. When he came into contact with external objects, he could metallize them. The metallization ability was very powerful, but it was not flexible enough. If he could control metal, his combat ability would definitely be greatly improved. In addition to controlling metal, Yarn also planned to add plants, earth, stone, water, fire, and air. It was impossible for a person to live in the world and not rely on the existence of metal, plants, earth, stone, water, fire, and air. As long as he had these things around him, he would be invincible when he was full of energy. Just like that, Yarn immediately read out the English for these abilities in his mind. Control metal. Control plants. Control earth and stone. Control water currents. Control fire. Control air currents. 6 purple runes written in English instantly appeared in the air above Yarn's head. If the rune masters in the rune world saw this scene, they would definitely be shocked and doubt their own eyes. Being able to meditate on one rune was already an extremely difficult task, but Yarn had managed to meditate on 6 runes in one go. Not only that, these 6 runes were all purple runes of the highest level. Even the top 9-star rune masters in the rune world were unable to do this. Purple runes were extremely precious. Being able to comprehend one was enough to shock an empire. This was also the reason why Berg coveted the purple runes inherited by the Yarn family. With the help of the system, every rune that Yarn meditated out was purple. If he didn't know that purple runes were very rare, he would have thought that they were just the most ordinary runes. If other rune masters knew that the most precious purple rune had become the most ordinary rune in Yarn's hands, they would definitely be so angry that they would vomit blood. Bathed in the holy light, Yarn's body underwent another transformation. Each rune would change the rune master's body, thus extending their lifespan. Yarn did not know how long his lifespan was, but he could clearly feel that his body was stronger, healthier, and lighter. Let's test the effect. Yarn stretched out his hand and pointed at the bathtub that was filled with water. The water in the bathtub swept out and turned into a water dragon in the air. With a thought, the water dragon turned into a crystal clear ice dragon. It gave off a deep, cold aura. Yarn snapped his fingers and the ice dragon turned back into a water dragon. Finally, it fell back into the bathtub. Chapter 9. Golden Runes. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Translator. Simple MTL Editor. Simple MTL Chapter 9. Golden Runes. The effect was not bad, and the scene was very brilliant. Luffy's heart skipped a beat, and he casually picked up a bright red apple from the dining table. The apple gradually metallized, giving off a cold metallic luster, and its weight also increased quite a bit. Under Luffy's gaze, the metallic apple twisted its shape and turned into a sharp dagger. Luffy waved his hand, and the dagger nimbly flew around the room, like a lark. This scene made Luffy very excited. Being able to control the metal that meant that he could kill enemies from a distance and protect his own safety. This reminded him of a manga character he had read about, Magneto. Magneto's specialty was being able to control the metal at will. He was very powerful. I wonder how far I can control it. Luffy controlled the dagger to fly out of the window, intending to test the range of his control. The rune ability was not unlimited. Even though he had the ability to control metal, it would still be limited by the distance and the Rune Master's spiritual power. If the enemy was thousands of meters away from him, even if he could control metal, he would not be able to do anything to the enemy. The dagger pierced through the air until it was about 100 meters away. After a few weak struggles, it broke away from Yarn's control and fell weakly from the air. Luffy had a rough idea in his mind. It seems that the range of my control is about 100 meters. The other control abilities should be about the same. 100 meters might not be big, but it was enough. Within 100 meters, he was a god. It would be impossible for a higher level Rune Master to pose a threat to Luffy within 100 meters. Luffy waved his hand again and controlled the branches outside. They grew into vines that looked like octopus tentacles. He picked up the dagger. The vines extended to the room where Luffy stood. After he took the dagger, the tentacles fell back to the ground and disappeared as if nothing had happened. Whoosh! Under Luffy's gaze, the dagger burst into flames. As the flames burned, the dagger glowed red. Just as the dagger was about to melt, the flames strangely disappeared again. A ball of water vapor condensed into a water ball and wrapped around the dagger. When the scalding dagger came into contact with the water ball, white mist immediately appeared. Luffy tried out all the different abilities. These abilities were all very powerful. As long as he used them well, his combat ability would be greatly improved. However, Luffy felt that it was not enough. Not only did the Simon royal family have a large number of soldiers, but they also had powerful high-level Rune Masters. This included Berg himself, who was also a Rune Master. Therefore, for this assassination mission, Luffy felt that he should be more sure. He should condense a few more runes to ensure the success of this mission. Otherwise, if he failed, even if he could escape from the Simon Empire, it would not be so easy to assassinate Berg next time. Tomorrow, on the day of the wedding, was the time when Berg was the most relaxed. From the angles of attack, stealth, and body, I should be prepared. What else is missing? Luffy paced back and forth in the room, seriously thinking about his shortcomings. Healing ability. Yes, once I'm injured, my injuries will affect my ability to perform and assassinate Berg. Berg must have a Rune Master protecting him. If I get close to Berg, I might be exposed. I need to deceive these Rune Masters through false appearances. Luffy thought of the healing ability and the illusion ability that could create the illusions he needed. Once he was injured, even if he had all kinds of powerful abilities, it would be difficult for him to use them. After all, the rune ability required a Rune Master's physical and mental strength. With the healing ability, he could ensure that he could heal his wounds as soon as possible. As for the illusion ability, it was also very practical. It could create illusions and deceive others. It could save him a lot of trouble. Also, I need to be fast. It's best if I can be fast enough to affect time. His attack power had been greatly increased, but his speed had not changed. Luffy thought of a manga character that could run at the speed of light, changing time and reversing time. The fastest speed should be time. If he could reverse time or stop it, then no one in the runic world would be able to kill him. At the very least, Luff would not die within the triggered time. Heal, illusion, speed, time. 4 words appeared in his mind. Heal, illusion, speed, these 3 words quickly transformed into purple runes. Only the time word was extremely slow in transforming. This made Luff extremely puzzled. Could it be that time cannot be transformed into runes? Just as Luff was thinking, the time word finally transformed into runes. However, it was different from the other purple runes. The time rune was actually not a purple rune, but a golden rune that was emitting a dazzling golden light. Luff's eyes were filled with shock. A golden rune. According to records, the runes in the rune world only had 7 colors, representing 7 levels. He had never heard of the existence of a golden rune. The moment the golden rune appeared in his mind, it flickered with a dazzling golden light, emitting a majestic power that suppressed the light of the other purple runes. Under the golden rune's light, the other purple runes actually cowered in the corner of his mind. Overbearing, powerful. Could it be? Luff thought of a possibility. The most fundamental power that formed the world was time and space. Only gods could control time and space. That was why the time rune in his mind was different from the other runes. Its energy level far surpassed others' abilities. Chapter 10. Time and Fate. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Translator. Simple MTL Editor. Simple MTL. At the same time, a system notification sounded in Luff's mind. Time. One of the constituent elements of the universe, the original power of the universe. This was the system's explanation of time. When you touch the time domain, the space.time runes you convert have the following abilities. 1. Pause time for 1 minute. Duration. 1 minute. 2. Speed up or slow down by a factor of 10. Duration. 1 minute. The above abilities can only be used once a day. Effective range. 10 meters. Luff's brain froze. This was so weird. What were the concepts of pause time and speed up or slow down time? No matter how powerful an enemy was, if they were stopped in place by pause time, they would be a piece of trash that could be slaughtered by others. As for speeding up and slowing down time by a factor of 10, could Luff really increase his own speed by a factor of 10 and slow down the enemy's speed by the same rate? Even if a rune.master with extremely fast speed was slowed down by a factor of 10, how much more would he have? Wouldn't he still be waiting for death? These 2 abilities could only be used once a day and could only be maintained for 1 minute. But it was enough. On the battlefield, 1 minute would be enough to turn the tide of the battle. If it was an assassination, 1 minute was enough to kill the enemy. Not to mention just 1 minute, even if it was only 10 seconds, it would be enough. Luff was ecstatic. He took a few deep breaths to calm himself down. These abilities are enough to kill Berg. As long as Berg is within 10 meters of me, I am absolutely confident that I can kill him. Luff was very confident. However, things are always changing and hard to catch. It would be good if I could see into the future. Luff was not a gambler. Although he was very confident in his current abilities, he understood that nothing was absolute. Moreover, it was in the strict palace. He did not want any accidents to happen. It would be great if he could know his future fate. Are there any runes that can predict the future and show me my fate? Searching for you. This thought just appeared in Luff's mind. The system seemed to have figured out his thoughts and automatically began searching. Fate refers to fate and luck. Fate and luck are 2 different concepts. Fate represents the direction of future development, and luck represents the recent changes in luck and misfortune. I wonder what my fate is like. Luff silently chanted fate in his heart, and the English word fate appeared in his mind. The miraculous thing was that the process of transforming fate into a rune was actually as slow as the time rune just now. Could it be another golden rune? Luff looked at the changes in his mind in surprise, full of anticipation. The power of the golden rune far surpassed that of other runes of other levels. Sure enough, a moment later, another golden rune appeared in Luff's mind. You have touched the realm of fate. The fate rune that you have transformed into has the following abilities. 1. You can check the luck of all living things. 2. You can check and change your own fate. Luff was shocked. Being able to check the luck of all living things meant that he could predict the good and bad luck of everything in advance. What really surprised him was that the fate rune could actually allow him to check and change his own fate. Fate included the development of life in the past and the future, as well as luck. Luff hurriedly triggered the fate rune to check his fate. The fate rune phantom appeared in the air, emitting a golden light that enveloped Luff. He saw 3 lifelines appear above his head, and 2 clouds of mist covered his head. These 3 lifelines were Luff's past and future life trends. The reason there were 3 lifelines was that they included him before he transmigrated, the original owner of this body, and Luff now he had transmigrated and taken over this body. Each memory strip had a flash of memory images. The first 2 were broken, representing the end of his life. Only the last memory strip was constantly winding, shrouded in a shadow. Because fate was constantly changing, Luff could not clearly see his future life trends, only a corner. A woman appeared in his future life several times. He could not see the woman's appearance clearly, but from the vague images, he felt that this woman should be a beauty that would drive everyone crazy. Who was she? This made Luff very curious, but when he looked back, he could only see a shadow. He could not see anything. He could only turn his attention back to his 3 lifelines. A person should only have 1 lifeline, but he had 3. It must be to attract someone's attention. An ordinary rune master would be fine, but if a rune master also had fate runes, he would be able to detect Luff's abnormality. If that happened, Luff would be treated as an alien. He would even be treated as an alien creature that had been embedded into the rune world from another dimension. He would be killed by the rune masters of this world. Looks like I still have to take out my lifeline. Luff took out his past, the lifeline of the original owner of this body. The lifeline of Luff, who had become a rune master. However, there was a problem with this lifeline. His starting point had been in prison, and his past was pitch black. Therefore, he had to find some reasonable experience for his past.